Hey, welcome to the How to Podcast series. Happy to be back with you again. I have a co-host, Tamzin Hall, is back again. Part 2 of the How to Podcast series. Tamzin is joining as a co-host for this episode from the UK. And we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today on the podcast. We're going to talk about how to motivate a podcaster if you're a new podcaster, if you've just started. Some ways to motivate you and talk around audience engagement. We're also going to talk about the breakdown between Apple and Android as far as some percentages based on countries where Apple is probably the most popular and where Android is the most popular. And we'll have links to what we're referring to in the show notes so you can double check what we're talking about. But Tamzin is on the podcast, and I love talking to her, and we're going to have a great conversation. Thank you for joining, and stick around to the end, and we're going to have some links and stuff to share with you at the end. So thanks for joining the How to Podcast series. Here's Tamzin Hall on the show. Welcome back, everyone. This is a part 2, right, Tamzin? Part 2 together. Talking about How to Podcast series. I have Tamzin Hall with me. Tamzin is now a certified smarty pants, which we'll talk about in a moment. And Tamzin is joining me to talk about podcasting and to talk together about motivation for podcasters. We're going to talk about Apple and Android and to just see where the conversation goes. Tamzin, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here as co-hosting.
Oh, it's so exciting, isn't it?
Yay!
I was so excited to be coming back.
It is.
So excited.
Well, I'm happy you came back. That's always a good thing. That means something to me. Okay, let's start right off the bat. It's big time smarty pants. Tamzin is here. Tamzin, tell everyone what you've accomplished, and we will all salute you in this. And congratulations, by the way. But please let everybody know what's happened for you.
So I'll just share a little bit of my story beforehand, because I think this might hopefully will help somebody who listens to this. So I grew up in the 80s, and in the 80s in the UK, and I was constantly told by my teachers that I wasn't working hard enough, I wasn't trying hard enough, I wasn't good enough, and quite frankly, I wasn't going to equate to anything. And I was told that, and every parents' evening was the same. Every report day was the same. I wasn't working hard enough. I knew I was working hard, but it wasn't until I was about 15 when I was diagnosed with dyslexia that all the pieces kind of started to fall into place. And actually, I was working hard, but I just couldn't get what was up here onto paper. So because I've been told that I wasn't good enough, I decided to come out of mainstream education and to get a job. You know, I was glad I did. I had a great career, but something was missing inside me, and something was, you know, I just felt like I needed to do something and needed to just do something else. And that something was a degree. And so I didn't do a degree when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, as most people do. I decided at the age of 38 that I was going to do my degree, and I did a degree in social psychology. So I have a Bachelor of Science with honours in social psychology, and it was my graduation a week and a half ago. So I had my graduation, and I attended my ceremony with my parents were there, my son was there, my husband was there, my best friend was there, and I just had a day where I had the gown and the hat and just celebrated the past 4 years of really, really hard work, but super proud of myself.
Okay, so take us up on stage with you. Your name is being called. It's your turn to walk across and receive your degree. Tell me how that feels. What were you thinking? What was going through your mind?
Well,
come on.
I was thinking, don't trip. Do not trip.
Yeah.
So my 12-year-old son has said to me beforehand, don't trip over. And as I walked up the steps, I'm quite heavy-footed. And as I walked up the steps, I thought there was another step and there wasn't. So I kind of slammed my foot down and made this really loud bang. So all that was going through my head was, don't embarrass yourself. Do not embarrass yourself. Don't trip up.
I love it.
And interestingly, everything went quiet. So when somebody's name was read out, see, everyone clapped and applauded and people were going, woo, and celebrating. And when my name was read out, I didn't hear anything. Just, to me, that however many seconds it took for me to get to where I was, to shake the hand of the guy giving me the tube, everything was quiet. Everything was silent. And my mum said to me afterwards, did you hear us? Did you hear us? We were so loud. I said,
wow.
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear. Just crazy. And you know, sometimes in life when you do things and something happens in really slow motion,
mm-hmm.
That's what happened to me then. It was really surreal, but it was fabulous.
And you must have a sense of pride and just acknowledging the hard work to do this. Again, you have a life, you have a busy life, a family, and you're still able to pull all this off. It's so inspirational to hear this.
Yeah.
There's got to be some pride for you in this.
Oh, so proud. And I didn't realise quite how proud until I woke up in the morning and my husband gave me a Mont Blanc pen and my son gave me a book and I got a bear and I got presents and cards, and I was just, oh my gosh, this is like everybody's acknowledging how proud they are of me. And it was something that, as I say, for educational reasons, I never thought I would receive. And I was sitting there. My husband took me out for a gin before, so we went to the Grand Hotel in Brighton beforehand, and he brought me and I said to my mum and dad, I want to go and have a professional photo done with you two. Like, I want to have me and my mum and dad there, a professional photo. I'd had with my husband and my son as well, and we were queuing up to have the photo taken. And I turned around to my dad, and my dad was a lecturer in a college, so he was a very educational, and my mum was a teacher. So I said to them, I bet you never thought we'd be here. I bet you never thought we'd be standing here. And they were just so proud. And I just, all of a sudden, it hit me actually how much I had achieved. Like you say, doing, everything else that I'm doing. And I was sitting there and I thought, I've got to do more. I've got to do more. Like, my next, what am I going to do next? And I want to do a master's next. I'm doing my ACC, so my coaching qualification. I've nearly finished that. And then I'm like, once I'm ACC credited, I'm going to go on and do a master's. That's what I'm going to do. And yeah, so exciting.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Like, I'm proud to talk to you as well and to hear your story. I hope somebody listening that's thinking about going to school or checking this off their list is listening to you going, well, Tamzin did it. So yeah, I'm going to enroll. I'm going to go do this. And you're inspiring others just by sharing your story. So yes, go do it. Right?
Absolutely. Go do it. Like, we hold ourselves back, don't we? We stop ourselves from doing things. And that's because with society, parents, education, or we have told ourselves we're not going to do it. But my advice is just do it. Just go and do it. There was a lady on my course who was in her 80s and she was doing a degree. It doesn't matter how old you are, who you are, what your background is, what you do. If you want to do it, do it. Do it.
Awesome. So if that doesn't motivate you enough, then we're going to talk today about motivating podcasters. And I'm excited to kind of talk about this and go through this with you. But I would love to kind of, in my mind, as we talk, Tamzin, I'm thinking of podcasters that are just starting out, new people. And I'll give you an example. I had, on my website, I have SpeakPipe, which is a way you can leave voice messages with people can come to your website and leave a voice message. It comes to you in an email, and then you can take it and drop it into your podcast. It's great. So you can hear the voice of your listener, which is amazing, right? Because we create podcasts and we never get to hear them. We never get to speak to people. And I had a message from a gentleman in Brazil. His name is Paulo. And he, in his English, he responded to me and he said, because of my How to Podcast series podcast, he's going to create a podcast to teach students how to speak English in Brazil. And he thanked me for this podcast, which you're on with me, to inspire him to create. And he just sent me his first episode this morning. And at the beginning of his first episode, he thanks me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, right? Like we create podcasts, we create content, we send it out into the world, and we never really know if it's landing, if it's connecting, if people are listening. But when you finally hear back from somebody who is motivated to go to school and to get a degree, to start a podcast, when they respond back to you, it just lights you up to hear somebody's story and how you've had an impact on them, right?
Isn't that amazing? I think that's fabulous, Dave. Well done. You should be
In
really
Brazil.
proud of that.
In Brazil too. Like what?
Yeah.
So how have people reached out to you in the past as you have helped them? How have they responded to you? And do you have any kind of story like that just kind of your mind goes to and you're like, oh yeah, that one person responded and said thank you or left me a comment? Is there something like that in your past that you can kind of think about?
So I don't think anything quite as fabulous as having a voice note from somebody in Brazil that's heard your podcast. You know, Dave, that's fabulous. You're touching corners of the world. I love that. I love that.
It's crazy.
So I can remember actually it would have been when I was a leader and leading a team of people, and just I'm quite a unique leader in the way that I empower people. I don't manage, I empower, and I support, and I boost up, and I give them all they need to be the best version of themselves and the best person they can be in their role and also at home. So I kind of combine the both, and I just a bit like you, Dave, I suppose, just did it, just was out there, was just doing my stuff day in, day out, just supporting people. And one day I received a card on my desk, and it was from somebody, one of my team, just to say how much of a difference I had made in their life, not only at work, but also in their personal life. And something so simple just really touched me. And a bit like, I suppose, with you, with receiving a voice note from somebody, I think we could all do that more. We can all say thank you to people more in unique ways, because actually we will then set off this ripple effect. And you've thanked me. You've changed my life because you've done X, Y, and Z. I listened to your podcast. I was part of your training program. You coached me. You did this. You did that. We change people's lives. Every single person that is listening to this podcast now, your life has been changed by somebody, and you have changed somebody's life. I know that's happened to you. Actually, if we just wrote a note or a card or sent a voice note or did something to say thank you, the kindness and the ripple effect and the happiness that would bring on so many people's faces would be fabulous, wouldn't it?
Yes. And I just did an episode recently for the How to Podcast series, and the idea behind that was that as podcasters, we ask our listeners, we ask our guests to do all these things, like leave us a review or send us a message or rate and review our show. All these things we ask of people to do for us at the end of our podcast episodes. And I'm toying with this right now, Tamzin, that I think as podcasters or content creators, as coaches, we need to give first before we ask anything of anyone else. So, for as a podcaster, before I ask you to go rate and review my podcast, I want to go rate and review your podcast. I want to send an email. I want to send a message. I want to encourage you. I want to get on your Instagram or your Facebook and encourage you in what you're doing before I ask anyone to do this for me. And I think if we can give more in 2023 than we ask, I think, and by giving, it'll just naturally come back to us because we're not giving to get. We're just giving to give. And I think that's one thing I'm really trying to focus on coming up is how I can encourage new podcasters like Paolo in Brazil starting his podcast by listening to my show. Like, that's amazing to me. But how can I create a giving culture for podcasters? And we're trying to motivate podcasters in this episode, but let's be the ones to give first instead of expecting somebody to give to us first. Something I'm really trying to work on for 2023.
I think, Dave, that giving to give, not giving to get, is just, I love that. I love that sentence. Yes. I find in my business, I tend to do all the giving and never ask for something back. And that doesn't bother me. And people say to me, "Why don't you push more sales? Why don't you do this? Why is that?" That's just not me. I just want to give, and I just want to share and spread because I absolutely believe what you said. If I give because that's intrinsically who I am, I want to give, it will come back around at some point, and that's fine with me. And I think, podcasts, I've never looked at it like that, but yes, you're right. Whenever we listen to podcasts, share, subscribe and share, and subscribe, share, and subscribe, share. But actually, as a podcast host, what am I doing for you? What am I doing for you? So, Dave, what would you like to see? So if you were listening to my podcast, what could I give to you apart from liking and sharing your podcast? What else could I give to you?
I love that whole saying about how the rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if we can all work together in podcasting, and I love podcasting in the sense that the community is very giving, very accommodating, right? Everyone's here to help each other. We're not really, even if we're in the same space, we can still work together, right? If I have a similar coaching program than you have, we can work together. We're not competition, but we can help each other. So from my point of view, what I love to do is bring snippets of other people's podcasts into my podcast, tell my audience, hey, go check out Tamzin. Like, Tamzin's doing great work. Go check out what she's doing. Here's links to her stuff. There's no money being transacted between us for this. It's just about raising all ships by just supporting each other and by doing that. And in doing that, I think that shows you're a genuine person and you're not just here to sell me a mattress or a supplement or a subscription to something on your podcast. But this is Dave and this is Tamzin, two real people working together to lift each other up and lift others up at the same time. I think that is what attracts people because they're not being sold to, but supported. And that's really one thing I really want to focus in on is less selling and more support. And by doing that, we just opens the door for people to say, hey, Tamzin, I love what you do. I've been listening to you. I've been following you. And now I have a question. Can I work with you? And it actually happened for me already as well. I had one of my past guests come on. She lives in California. I'm in Canada. She came on as a guest on my podcast, on my Living the Next Chapter podcast. She's an author. And then about 5 months later, she says, Dave, I want to start a podcast. Can I hire you to do my editing? I didn't have you come on my podcast to sell you on editing. I had you come on to talk about your book. That's it. No mention of anything about editing. I just wanted to promote you. And it seems to be working, Tamzin. And then that helps me. It kind of fuels me to say, okay, what can we do more of then that, it may return into something for me. It may not. But my motivation isn't to be rewarded by supporting others. I just want to support others.
Interestingly, yes, collaboration over competition every single day. I'm that unique person that if I go to a networking event or I meet somebody and they're in the same space as me, I want to talk to them. I want to have a conversation with them. I'm not competing with them. I just want to get to know them. We are all totally unique. And if whoever is listening to this, your podcast, even if your podcast has the same topic or has the same theme as somebody else, it's you that makes your podcast unique. You. And by promoting somebody else who's in the same space as you, or having them on your podcast, you're not going to be sending your audience to them or vice versa. You're just enriching what your audience are listening to. I think it's so important.
And I was thinking too, Tamzin, about our local television news. For those people who watch television still. For us here in Canada, the 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock news. There's different news stations. Some local, some national. But they're all talking about the same topic. There's the same news. It's not like a news reporter creates news. They're reporting on news, right? They're just reporting. They didn't make up the news, right? So as a content creator, we might be talking about the same thing as somebody else. We're not creating that content, but we're reporting on it and we're sharing it in our own unique way, building an audience around the way we present it. And in that uniqueness of who we are, as creators, that's what makes us unique, and that can't be copied. Even if somebody's talking about the same topic, we are uniquely us. We are our background, our history. For you, all the struggles growing up and learning and growing and now getting your degree, you are you. No one else can be Tamzin. So your perspective in life as a creator and a podcaster can't be replicated by anyone else in the entire world. So you have an audience just because you're you. And I love that.
Doesn't it just... there's something so magical about that, isn't there? That, there's room for everybody. There's space for everybody. There's space for all of us. Some people will absolutely love listening to us together. Some people will hate it. And some people absolutely love the messages that you bring or the messages that I bring. Others maybe not. And that's okay. Just be uniquely you, and you will, if you can collaborate with people who are in a similar space to you, do it. Don't shy away from it. Do it. Collaborate with people, and let's send that ripple effect of kindness, of appreciation, and of collaboration. The world needs it right now. There's so much rubbish stuff going on at the moment.
Yeah.
We need that movement of lifting each other up and being kind to each other and collaborating with each other and seeing everyone's uniqueness and amazingness. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I hear that from new podcasters who look out into the podcast world, Tamzin, and they have a topic idea, but there's 100 other people talking about the same thing. And they're like, oh, I guess I'm too late. I can't do my podcast about this thing that I love and I'm passionate about because there's 100 other people doing it. But there's not 100 other you. There's only one you, and your perspective is different than everyone else. So there's lots of room for everyone in this space.
Absolutely. Just look at the charts. I mean, I wouldn't even know who's top of the charts at the moment. So music charts, I wouldn't even know. But how many singer-songwriters are out there? How many people are there in the music industry? How many? There's so many of them. They're doing the same thing. They're singing to us. They're recording. They've got music behind them. They're entertaining us. That's exactly the same as anything. There's room for everybody. If you have an idea, if it absolutely sets your soul alight, if it really excites you and you want to share it with the world, do it. Don't let anybody stop you. Do it.
I heard a story about the Beatles when they were trying to find one of their first record companies to produce them. And they went and they presented their music. And the record company said, there's too many guitar bands in the world. It's not going to work. To the Beatles. There's a mistake, right?
Wow.
Yeah. Too many guitar places. Nope. No more guitars. So, so there's a lot of space for people in this podcast space. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I want to start, but I'm afraid of all of the competition out there, listen to our conversation. It's more about building each other up and working together than trying to do this all by yourself. and find people in your corner that can help support you.
Without a doubt. The other thing that I'd like to say on that, Dave, is sometimes, very often, apparently, we decide to compare ourselves with others, and we decide to compare our day. We do this naturally. It's something instinctively in us. We compare ourselves with others. So if you do it, don't worry. We all do it. But if you're on day 2 of your journey, please, please, please do not compare yourself with somebody who is on day 200, because they're different people. They're on a different time frame to you, and they've just experienced so much more in this podcast space than you have. So please don't compare your journey with someone else's. This is your journey. If you feel the need to compare with anybody, compare with your yesterday and make sure you're taking steps to grow and to move forward rather than going backwards.
Yeah, if your next episode is better than the previous one, that's the best comparison, because you're getting better as a podcaster, as a creator, whatever you're writing. If you write a blog, if your next blog is better than your last one, then you're getting better. And the more you do this, the better. I'm a musician. I play guitar. And if I bought a guitar from the guitar store, music store, came home, opened the case and thought I'd be perfect at playing the guitar on day 1, I would be hugely disappointed, because it takes practice, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes muscle memory. You got to learn how to play this instrument. You don't just become a guitar player because you have a guitar. You don't become a podcaster because you have a podcast. You have to practice. You have to get better. You have to make mistakes. You got to learn. You got to try different things. And I think that's the one thing I think we put this big barrier that we think we have to climb over, that it has to be perfect on day 1. Well, musicians practice. Comedians go to little pubs and little comedy clubs and practice new material before they present it to the world. Authors practice and rewrite and work on stuff. Screenplays, movies are rewritten. Professional sports people practice, and they spend time and effort getting better. As podcasters, don't think that just because today I decided to start a podcast that it has to be perfect. You need to grow, and you need to work with people around you that can help you do that.
If you think back to the first time you ever recorded a podcast to how you are today, what's different?
I think a little bit looser, a little bit more confident. I've worked through some mistakes on software and recording platforms like we're on with Riverside, for example. Just not knowing what I don't know. That's the biggest thing. You just don't know what you do not know. And until you cross that bridge, that's when you learn. So I would say there's a lot more to learn, but I won't get there any faster if I stop. And the only way that I can grow a podcast and grow an audience is to never stop. Just don't stop. That's really it. Is the moment you stop, you're not going to grow.
Doesn't matter, does it? No.
I love this great.
What happened yesterday doesn't matter.
Right? A month ago, you didn't have a degree.
From it.
You didn't have a degree a month ago. Nope, you didn't.
Right?
Right?
I know.
Right? And you just push forward, and you learn, and you grow, and you become better. Awesome. Okay, let's switch gears. In Canada and U.S., there's a lot of people talking about players for your podcast, and the amount of users that use Apple versus Android. So iOS versus Android. And I looked up some stats before we jumped on today, and I was interested to get your feedback on this. Before
you tell the audience, can we ask the audience, because I almost you told me the stats in the UK, and just audience, think about UK, Canada, America. What do you think is more popular, Android or Apple?
Can I tell you the country that Apple is the most popular in? Japan.
Yeah, go on.
Japan.
That surprises me.
Yeah, I know, right? Japan. So, okay, so here I pull these numbers up. I'll put links in the show notes so people can actually read what I'm saying. I'm not making these numbers up. Then it's as of today, November 2022. But in the UK, all right, the percentage of users, 61% are Android and 38% are Apple. So now the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I listen to podcasters, specifically US podcasters and Canadian podcasters, at the end of their podcast, they'll say, thank you for listening. Go over to Apple and rate and review my podcast. Now, if I'm sending that message out into the world beyond the US-Canadian borders, in the UK, by these numbers, only 38% of my audience can actually do what I've asked them to do, and 61% of my audience can't do anything with that. So I've alienated 61% of my audience by me simply saying, go to Apple and rate and review me. Now, podcasting, I think, needs to be inclusive and include everyone, not just Android users, not just Apple users. We need to reach our entire audience. So that's what threw me as a loop, because I'm actually an Android user. I use Google for my phone, and I've always been an Android user. I don't know why, to be honest. I've never given Apple a chance, so I can't compare apples and apples. I can't do that. But I just, that Android's been my thing since day one, so I've just naturally done that. So that's UK. In the US, Apple is 54%. And Android is 45%. So it's almost 50-50. Pretty close. Canada, it's 58% Apple and 41% Android. But worldwide, and this number is really interesting, worldwide, Android is 71% of users worldwide are on Android phones, and 28% are Apple worldwide. So if you're talking to a worldwide audience on your podcast and you say, rate and review me in Apple, find me on Apple, and that's all you say, you don't say anything else, just rate me on Apple, you've alienated 71% of your audience. Ouch.
Big ouch. So does that surprise you? That really surprised me. So if you wrote down kind of before Dave shared those stats with us, did it surprise you? Did it surprise you, Dave, when you found them?
I did. And then before we hit record, I threw it at you because I anticipated your answer based on these numbers, and you shocked me. So I was thinking you'd be like, yeah, I'm in the UK, 61% Android, 38 Apple, I'm Android. But Tamzin,
no.
Now let's talk to the expert because you're there. What are you using?
So, I use both, but my preference is Apple every day. So, for personally, I have an Apple iPhone, I have an Apple Mac laptop, I have Apple iPads, I have an Apple Watch. I'm Apple through and through. I have to use Samsung for a corporate role that I have. And I don't like Samsung. In fact, I cannot stand even turning my Samsung device on. I hate it that much. And a lot of my friends have Apple devices, which is why it surprised me that in the UK we're so low on Apple, because a lot of people that I know use Apple.
Interesting. So how do we be more inclusive of our audience then? Knowing that people are listening to us in different ways. What do you think? How do we bring more people into podcasting? Because there's a lot of people who don't even know what a podcast is, first of all. How do we expand that and not alienate people in how we talk?
It's hard, isn't it? Because capturing such a broad spectrum of people, so people that want to use, we said before we came on the show, you can go to Amazon, Apple, Google Play, the actual website of the podcaster, Spotify, Audible.
YouTube as well. Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
You can't say all of that at the end of the podcast. You can't say, you can find us on here. You just can't do that, can you?
No.
What do you do?
I've been using Podpage because it pulls right from my RSS feed, and it's free, and it creates a podcast website for me. So that's Podpage, and so I have 6 podcasts. So all of them are hosted on Podpage, and you can see all the episodes. You can rate and review online. So that's kind of one tool that I've been trying out. For me, I try to make sure my podcast is everywhere. So like I have a podcast that's listed in Africa. I have my podcast listed in India. So, and those are podcasts specific for those countries, but they like English podcasts as well. So if it takes 5 to 10 minutes to set up and be everywhere for free, then I think we need to be everywhere. But do I promote every single one of those? No, because not everyone's listening. But I tried to send people to my website because my website is a permanent anchor for everything that I do. And if I bring people to my website, then it's one easy way to do that. And then from my website, you can then find an Apple link, an Android link, whatever link you want. Everything's listed there, but I don't have to say them out every single time. So that's kind of the way I kind of make it smaller and easier for people to do. And then put links in the show notes, because if you're on your phone, you can just click the link and go straight to the link instead of, trying to remember it while you're on the treadmill.
I like that. Could you say at the end, rate and review on your preferred podcast platform, or listen to the next episode on your preferred podcast platform?
Yeah, and I always the other thing is I like to ask them to follow the podcast or subscribe, however it's worded on the app that they're listening to, because then it goes straight into their new episode folder within their app. And it's kind of like a way to keep all your new episodes together for all the different podcasts you listen to. It gets put into one location on your app, and then you can just go to that location and listen to all the new episodes whenever they come out.
So can I ask you how that then will impact ratings? So ratings is obviously something that's quite high on podcasters' agenda. If we're saying Apple is, so let's look at worldwide. So Apple is 28% in worldwide and Android is 71%. How does that affect the ratings? Because you're not rated, across everything. You can either be the top podcaster on Apple or the top podcaster on Android or the top podcaster here or here or here. How does that affect things?
Well, then there's also each country has their own rating. So like in Thailand for Apple, I might be rated at number 125, but in Apple Colombia, I might be at 62. Right. So it's not like it's one number for Apple. It's regional as well. So I guess the big thing for me is when people get really excited about numbers is just remember that sometimes in the apps, you might automatically download the newest episode from your podcast you're following, but you actually haven't even listened to it yet. It's in that folder that I mentioned that automatically your files just go to. So I release a podcast of the How to Podcast series. It goes out today. You might not listen to it till next Thursday, but it's in your folder and counts as a download because it's automatically downloaded to your folder. So have somebody actually listened to my podcast? Well, they downloaded it because they subscribed, but they actually haven't heard it yet. So, there's a lot of that going on too, where, and I think the one thing that people really get focused on as a new podcaster is focusing in on their numbers, focusing in on their audience, focusing on, am I successful? And my big challenge for everybody is just try to imagine that people listening are coming back for you because of who you are and your content, and just give them the best every week. And if you want to compare anything, compare your last episode to this episode, and that's it. But don't really get caught up in the numbers, because we don't create podcasts for a number. We create podcasts for a listener. And let's focus on the listener and the rest will just happen. It will. It just takes time. And as it grows, it grows. And like for Paulo that I mentioned in Brazil, he reached out, sent me a message. I reached out back to him. He put me on the podcast as a shout out. Thank you. I've built a bridge with Paulo now in Brazil. I've never met the gentleman, but we now have a working relationship together and support each other because that's how we do things. And then if I put that episode out to the world, people are like, wow, Dave really does listen to my comments and my suggestions. So I'll do more of that. And that's kind of how you build your audience. That's kind of how I focus on it.
I think that's such great advice, and it's so special. We get caught up in numbers so much, and it's, I love that. I love that. I see so often on my Facebook feed and my social media feed, I'm launching a podcast. I want to be number one here. I want to be number one there. I want to be this. I want to be that. But that advice, Dave, is just so important, so important. And I cannot wait to listen to Paulo's first podcast episode. So you must send it to me. I can't wait to listen to it. Paulo, you're famous.
And we will definitely give him yes, we will rate and review him. He only has one episode. He's so proud of it. And again, like to hear feedback, right? Mm-hmm. To hear feedback from anyone about whatever you're doing is humbling, really, to know that you've helped somebody. But it fires you up and makes you want to keep going. And if you're a new podcaster listening to this, the moment you get that first email or message or contact or whatever comment from somebody in your audience listening to you, when you work on this by yourself in your own little recording area and you send it out into the world and you have no idea what's going to happen, to get that feedback is amazing. So Tamzin, I know you got to run for stuff. What is the best way for people to connect with you, Tamzin? What's coming up for you? Let's share a little bit about Tamzin.
Oh, thank you. I think just before I say all of that stuff, I've just got a bit of advice for people. So this podcast is all about kind of motivation, how to keep your motivation. And if you can take those pieces of feedback that you receive, so say you've put your podcast out there and you have 5 really great comments, 5 people that reach out to you, or maybe you just have one, that's absolutely fine. Every time you have a piece of comment, piece of feedback that comes back to you that gives you a little happy dance inside, I encourage you to either screenshot that or write it down on a piece of paper. I don't think we're videoing, but I'm going to show Dave. So what I have here is I have a little jar, and in this jar,
I love it.
I have notes. And these would be notes of, so this is a mindfulness jar, but I have clients that do this, and they have notes and they write down on their piece of paper the feedback that they've received or the compliment they've got, so that on times and days when they're not particularly feeling motivated or they feel like, why am I doing this? This is so hard. They can go to their jar or they can go to their folder with their photos in or whatever it looks like for you, and they can see the reasons why they're doing it because they've received such great feedback. So if you're just starting out, if you're not just starting out, and some days you feel like this is hard, I encourage you to get a jar or get something and just write down pieces of feedback that you get, pop it in the jar, and when you're feeling a bit low or a bit down, go to your jar, pick it out, and it will remind you why you are absolutely fabulous and why you need to carry on doing what you're doing.
So, okay, before you continue, Tamzin, I love that. Can you pull one out for me right now?
Pull one out of here. Well, this is mindfulness, so this is slightly different, but I can do. Yes.
Okay, I would love to hear something.
Okay. Oh, I love this one. So, offer to go for a walk with someone today and give them your full attention. Can you see that?
I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yes. We're very good, aren't we, about going out with people and being on our phones or being totally distracted. Many a time I've been out for coffee with people and I'm sitting there and they're on their phone and they're not present. So, and I'm an advocate of walking. I love walking. I think walking is the best thing ever for everything, for our mental health, for our motivation, for our productivity, for everything. I love walking. So actually that's a great card to pull out. So yes, so go for a walk with somebody, give them your undivided attention. Love that. Talking of that, did you go to Niagara Falls?
I did. And yes, I did. I have my photos. I got to post them. But yeah, you challenged me to do that because I go by there all the time.
I did.
And I did. I listened to you, Tamzin, because I knew you were going to ask me. So yes, it's gorgeous. Right now it's cold because we're in November, but yeah, and all the tourists are gone basically now. So now it's the best time for locals to go down and experience it because you don't have the lineups of people. So yes, thank you for encouraging me and reminding me. I love it.
I love that. And I'm looking forward to seeing your photos.
Please.
I'd love to see a photo.
I would love to. Yes, I will post them soon. Yes. Yes. So how do people work with you, Tamzin? What do we do?
Yep. Okay. So my business is Tamzin Hall Coaching. So it's my website is tamzinhallcoaching.co.uk. And what's next for me? We've got another podcast that we're recording. So we're not stopping here. We've got some more podcasts that we're recording. As I said, I've nearly finished my my ACC coaching accreditation, so I'm very nearly a fully qualified ACC coach. I'm going to be doing a master's as well, and I am launching a leadership program in the beginning of the year. So that's something exciting as well. So lots going on for me, an awful lot going on for me, but really good stuff. And I just really want to just support people to live their best lives and to using the psychology of themselves, their teams, people that are around them, people that they're supporting, their clients. Humans are we are so unique, we're so amazing, but we don't believe in ourselves enough, and we don't believe in others enough. And I believe in every single person. I think every single person is capable of the most amazing things, and I want everybody to do the same. And everything actually that we've talked about today, Dave, in terms of that collaboration, supporting each other, being kind, reaching out and thanking people for everything they do for us, all of that stuff is everything that I absolutely love. So, I love it. Yeah, lots going on for me, but my business is Tamzin Hall Coaching.
Beautiful, and we'll put links in the show notes as well. Thank you, Tamzin. I know you have a full day of lots of stuff going on for you. Thank you for being generous with your time. Thank you for coming back for round 2. And round 3, we'll figure out what we're going to talk about next. But having you on is so inspirational. Congratulations on your educational pursuits and achievements. So proud to be experiencing that with you, and looking forward to our next conversation. Everyone, please go check out Tamzin's link and give her some love today as well.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Tamzin.